Greetings everybody, my name is Andrew Sumner. I am the COO of Titan Comics, live from the blazing, beating, wet heart of London, England. So it's very much a pleasure to be here in beautiful San Diego, one of my favourite cities, one of my favourite states, one of my favourite countries. That's a true story. My grandfather fought in an American unit for World War II, which is why I got into comic books. And here to talk about something we're very proud to work on, which is Blade Runner. We published the comics of Blade Runner, but we would not be able to do that without the actions of these two fine gentlemen. So, right next to me here, this is the genius, Mellow Brown, the writer of our top Blade Runner.
Thank you all for coming out to talk about dystopias in 2024.
And right next to him is the man that my editorial colleague, David Leach, who's the group editor of our Blade Runner titles back in London, refers to as the Gandalf, if you will, of the Blade Runner universe. That is Mr. Jeff Connor from Alcon.
Thanks for coming down. I've been a fan of Comic-Con since we were at the Coronado way back when. How many out there, before we begin, have a Blade Runner tattoo? All right, talk to me after the panel in the hallway. I want to get a picture of that.
It's very large.
No problem.
The bigger, the better, as I would say to my kids when they get their tattoos done.
Actually, one more thing before we start. For the writers of Blade Runner Tokyo, one of them is not here because she lives in Tokyo, so we try to keep it authentic. Her name is Kiana Shore. She has actually not done a Comic-Con yet. So one thing I want to ask for y'all for a minute, I just want to take a quick video for her just to see that this many people are out here to see her work. So on a count of 3, if we could all just say, "Hi, Kiana," that would be great. All right. Tilt this guy up. 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Give yourselves a round of applause. Come on. We've published a lot of fine Blade Runner comics over the last couple of years. And before we talk about Tokyo Nexus, Jeff and I were talking last night about a book that Mellow was one of the creators of. That we feel is, to a degree, like the unsung gem of our Blade Runner program thus far. And that's the fine title that was Blade Runner Origins. So
right here.
Right here, let's give it a round of applause.
This is the first time that we explored the Blade Runner timeline prior to the film, prior to 2019. This goes back to 2009, and it really shows the genesis of the Blade Runner program, and then deals with a lot of other issues besides that. And if you've been sleeping on this book, don't. It's really, really great, especially now that it's collected in a handy volume. It's really worth your time if you haven't checked it out yet.
So just before we talk about Mellow's work on Origins, which is where I'd like to start, mate, if you're down with that.
Yeah, sounds good.
I just want to get real quick into something we've talked about before, actually in this very room, but it's always worth exploring once again, just in case you've not heard these interesting answers. So I'll start with you, Jeff. How did you first get into Blade Runner? What was your entry to Blade Runner?
Through Philip K. Dick. I was reading all of his books in the 60s and 70s. And actually some friends of mine were working on the Blade Runner film, so I read a couple of scripts before it came out. So the day it opened, I went to see it opening night, 70mm over in San Jose. And that was 1982. And that same year, E.T. came out, Wrath of Khan came out, Tron came out, Conan the Barbarian came out, The Road Warrior came out, and The Thing came out. So it's 10 years of great films in 1 year. And and it's never been duplicated. And people can say that Marvel style of storytelling has ruined films, and I can't say they're wrong.
Well said, mate. How about you, Mellow?
I was too young when it came out. So when it had dropped, I don't know, I was being like born or something. But so
Maybe that's the connection, mate.
so my introduction to it was actually an episode of Tiny Toons, and it was they did a Blade Runner episode reference, and you could tell someone was a replicant because real kids don't eat broccoli. and so I asked my folks, I was like, what is this from, and everything like that. And my dad gave me like, it's complicated. So he was real cool about it, let me watch it at a young age, and I didn't like it. That was weird. Like it's not a great movie for a kid, but as I got older and I could understand exactly what it was referencing about like all these characters, and especially the point of view of the replicants and all that. I was locked in. That was good to know.
Amazing. I do love that story, which is why I asked you to tell it every time. And as for me, I saw the movie when it came out in my hometown, Liverpool, England. I was with my best friend at school, still my best friend to this day, Moose Davis, the Moose. On the Moose and I went into the centre of Liverpool, and we were going to watch a revival of the Blues Brothers. It'd been out for 2 years at that point, we'd seen it many times. And it was the day that the hour had changed in the UK, and so we hadn't been dopey kids, we hadn't realised, and so we got to the cinema, and the Blues Brothers was an hour in, so we ended up going to see, he's not a science fiction fan, so we went to see Blade Runner instead. And I sat there thinking, man, I wonder how this is playing out with the Moose, you know, it's not really his thing. And at the end of the film we came out and I was like, what did you think, mate? And he goes, lad, that was fucking awesome. My intro to Blade Runner. So, Origins. What can you lay on the good people here about Origins, what it means to Blade Runner, and its creation, please, guys?
I would say the core thing about Blade Runner is, Origins in particular, is, I guess, let me go back. Generally, my feelings about the franchise is about the day where I'm seeing, I can't curse, I always check that. But what was it? It's about the day when you say, screw it, and I don't want to be a part of this system anymore. And that goes for every single person that you see within Blade Runner. That goes for the Blade Runners themselves. It's about the last day that they're on the job. You see it within Deckard, you see it within Kay, and then you see the day that a replicant is just like, no, screw this. I am a person. I deserve a life. I need to discover who I am besides being in adventurous servitude, and dies from being within that system as well. And what Origins explores is the first time a replicant does that, and then when it gets to the point where you have someone who is put into a position of doing that and knowing how horrible the job is, and is forced to do it anyway, but finding, without spoiling it too much, finding a solution that can carry on throughout for every Blade Runner going forward.
Yeah, I think that's very well said. Jeff, what was the creation of that? What was it from your vantage point? What was the creation of that series like?
Well, I mean, is cyberpunk writ large an aesthetic, or is it science, or is it the political meaning of it? I think if you want to look at the evolution of the genre, you know, Philip K. Dick wrote that novel in 1966, the film came out in 1982, and then William Gibson's Neuromancer came out in 1984, and I think that cemented what cyberpunk really was. And I think it's the creation of a genre that has persisted to this day, and there's very few genres that do that. Most stuff within films or commercial art or fads or cycles, but aside from, say, found footage films, there's not too many actual genres that persist, and cyberpunk is one of them, and you see it all over the place now. So I think it's more an aesthetic or a vibe, and you can tell all these different types of stories within it, which is its strength, I think.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's very interesting. And I think that makes me think in terms of, why, to pick up on your point, one of the major themes of Blade Runner, across all adaptations, is that question of where humanity lies and what humanity is. And you've had the benefit of exploring many things throughout the series: gender, identity. What is it about the Blade Runner universe that lends itself to those themes?
I think it's in the original movie, and the way it's in the original movie is portrayed through the character of Chris, who I think is that is my personal favorite character in the franchise. And the reason why is because Chris kind of starts off subtle. She's like, I'm gonna dip my toe in a little bit of rebellion. Maybe I'll dip my toe in a little bit of murder, and then just kind of she's just transitioning as the movie goes into discovering who she is. By the last act, she's wearing a tutu. She has the makeup on. She's fully exploring herself, and she has a death scene that is unlike any other death scene you'll see in any other movie, which is when she gets shot, she knows that's death for her. And she could use that last bit of strength to just take out Deckard in that moment. But instead, she's kicking and screaming on the ground. She's raging out. She's just furious. And what makes that interesting is that she knows that this is a system that even if she made it out of this moment, she'll still be locked in. She'll still be captured. And so she is just yelling at all of it before she finally dies. And so giving each one of these characters that moment and expanding on that and putting just a little bit of Chris as all these characters has been very important.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear you say that, because I think Chris is a character that often doesn't get her due, given how super influential, not just within Blade Runner, but super influential the character has been, because the DNA of Chris is everywhere in popular culture after Blade Runner, but not beforehand. And a big part of the ways in which Harley Quinn's been adapted owes a lot to Chris, right?
Mm-hmm. We've even seen there was an anime I love, Bubble Crisis, which is a really big ode to Blade Runner, where their lead character was named Chris, just out of love for what that character did to the entire genre.
I couldn't agree more. And I guess that leads us on to up until the inclusion of love from Blade Runner 2049 and the occasional appearance from the likes of Tyrell, Black Lotus is out, the Blade Runner comic has mainly avoided using characters from the movie universe. Yeah? And do you think that's the secret of its success, that it stands alone, as a complete alternate or aiding and abetting expression of the universe? What do you think, Jeff?
Well, Michael Green was the architect of the comics from the start, and he was very clear on not doing a karaoke comic or that's just filled with fan service, and to tell new valid stories within the timeline. So it is a conscious decision. It has, it's not about rights or licensing or this kind of stuff. We really want to do something new within it. I mean, the movies take a long time, so we want to tell real stories so you can stay in that world and have a meaningful experience and not just a nostalgic one.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. And to bring us up to the present day, to Tokyo Nexus, what can you tell us about it?
So Tokyo Nexus is I would say on a personal level, the big magnum opus that I've been building within the Blade Runner books has been the questions that we've always asked, which were essentially within origins. How did this all start? There is a final chapter, which is what happens when other people build replicants and why you don't see it in other movies and how horrible that can get. We're going to get into that later because it's the massive Blade Runner event. And then there's this piece in the middle, and that piece in the middle is Blade Runner Tokyo Nexus. And what that is the discovery that from the events of Blade Runner Origins, that there are two scientists that ran away, and they've essentially hidden within Tokyo itself. And because of that, it changes the course of history, because now you have two people who are capable of creating replicants who immediately now belong to the Yakuza. And because of that, they're just like, sweet, let's modify these. Let's make something new. Let's make something different. And you're getting that from the perspective of two people who also ran away from the military as well. And the journey that they take to find out that, like, what is about to happen to the world and how it's related to everything that's happening within Tokyo in this particular time, and using this really, really unique canvas to just show something very new within that universe. Because, you know, I'm going to talk a little smack real quick. Blade Runner was originally made in the 80s, and at that time Japan was on top. Japan was doing real good, and there was this dystopia made around like what LA would look like if that continued, and that dystopia was Blade Runner itself. One thing that we wanted to talk about with that, and a big reason why we wanted to bring Keanu on board as well, is the perspective of that current day of how kind of not great of what that was. And a little bit of that is actually, what if Tokyo looked like something else entirely from how it looks in LA? So what we've seen this entire time in Los Angeles in terms of how Japan is portrayed is LA's version of what they think that is. While in Tokyo itself, it is having, it is a beautiful utopia on the surface. It is this magnificent, gorgeous place with everything that's just kind of lurking in the shadows that will stomp you into the dirt if you get a little bit out of line. And everyone is on the verge of snapping, and which is a similar problem to what's happening in Los Angeles. When we go to another country, it just looks different. It just feels a little different, only in terms of the surface texture level. But all of that is still just one of those things where it's like, no, this is a dystopia that doesn't look like it. And that is one of the funnest environments like we wanted to explore, and it opens the door for us to do this in a lot of other places in many other countries.
Yeah, instead of going off-world, we're going to Tokyo. And, you know, looking at a culture where individual sacrifice for the collective good is a primary organizing element, and it's a lot different than the capital system we have here. And so that contrasting the two, at least visually, I think it says a lot. And like Mellow was saying, be underneath that, is it any better? You know, crime is crime. So, but I also, it always sort of annoyed me that there's only one source of replicants. Tyrell is the only guy who can make these things. I mean, I understand that he does have the formula for Coke, and he's not going to give it up, but there's a lot of knockoffs out there, and people trying to reverse engineer and that kind of thing. And I'd love to see how that works, and being far away on another side of the world where that could happen without Tyrell's direct intervention, we think, is interesting. So having like a three-way protagonist thing going on, I really like that a lot. You know, it's interesting stuff.
Yeah, very, very well said, both of you. Let's talk about some of the inside baseball of the creation of Tokyo Nexus. And in order to get into that, the first thing I'd like to start with is actually with you, Jeff, which is, can you explain for the guys here what your role is within Alcon, what it is, how you interface with Blade Runner, and what it is that you do?
I was originally hired at Alcon to explain Blade Runner to them to a certain extent. I mean, that's a cheeky way of saying it, but it was sort of to keep track of the continuity so they didn't paint themselves to a corner, or so they were consistent throughout because of my sort of long association with the franchise. And then having a background in comics and publishing, I said, hey, you know, we should get into these areas. And that's what brought us to Titan. And And we did have a beauty contest of different companies coming in and pitching us, and Titan was the best fit. You know, the companies are both owner-operated, fairly small, artist-forward. We like the Titan's based in London, so there's more of a heavy metal aspect, European aspect to them than a lot of the American companies.
I bet you could just say it was a beauty contest. I was clearly the most beautiful.
And I lost my train of thought. Sorry, what are you supposed to be talking about? I mean, I'm talking about myself, right? That's
Look at him, Jeff.
my favorite subject, but you know, having Michael Green involved from the get-go sort of gave us our marching orders, but I have to give it to Titan for sourcing the artists and giving it that look, which I think is so integral to the comic's success. I mean, we have done, gosh, you know, what, 4, 5, 12-issue arcs now, and we just launched some new ones. That's a lot of content, and we managed to keep the creative team throughout, you know, which is pretty unusual. So I think we're doing really, really good work, and I wish David was here to talk about it more, because I just take credit for what he does.
And the David who's been referred to here is a chap called David Allen Leach, another one of my old friends, funny enough, I must have known him for over 30 years. And he's a supremely creative artist and cartoonist. He's a cartoonist himself. He's got a very unusual style, much more humour-based, but he's got a brilliant small press title called David Leach Conquers the Universe, which is absolutely batshit crazy and worth reading. The cover of issue 1 is David fighting Godzilla from his art desk. And it was David's instincts about the art really that put all those various artists together, and he has played a major role from that perspective. To move into yourself then, Mellow, you're one of a handful of people to write Blade Runner. It's still a very small number to this day.
It's there, yes.
Yeah, right. But you've become increasingly important to that endeavour for us over the last 4 or 5 years. There's been charting the life and career of Ash, of course, but how's that process been for you? And then what was the specifics of creating Tokyo Nexus?
It's really hard, and that's because of just how you make Blade Runner a comic. And there's a lot about Blade Runner that works in the film because there's 2 actors acting real hard against each other, trying to figure out exactly what they are in the process. When you do that in a comic, you just go from panel to panel. You have to write it in a way where artist just isn't like, and then his eyebrow moves a little bit when you go to the next panel, and then you all feel like you wasted your money on 22 pages of just that. So it is trying to figure out what exactly other genres are still very noir you can dip into to keep this thing kinetic. That is still a place where these characters are discovering themselves, but it's interesting because they're still in the move, they're still jumping on their feet, they're still tackling each other and things like that. But the conversations are still happening, and you still keep the conversations physical. So you put little drops of grindhouse in there. And you make it so that way these characters, once again, similar to Chris, are willing to rage, to claim who they actually are. And then you get to that point where it's just like, what is that little thing you can trigger in this individual that would happen to all of us? Where it's like, what would make you finally pick up a rock and throw it through the window? What would make you rage out to the point where you're just like, this is who I am exactly? And you just keep needling it slowly in little ways and like really creative ways. So it's a tough thing to do. It's one of those like Blade Runner is really hard to make.
Yeah. I get that because it's the essential primal scream of life, right? But you can't write it dialed up to 11 all the time.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you've just got a one-note piece of work, and that to me is the beauty of what you guys have achieved. The tones and the acceleration, the deceleration, the exploration, that constant exploration of replicant life, but of course in reality it's human life. Yeah. It's such an endlessly fascinating subject, but I think getting your pace right is what you guys have done so well with this book.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's awesome. Tokyo Nexus, how did you guys put that together specifically?
Wow. Someone pitched it to us. Who?
That was me.
You pitched it.
Tokyo Nexus was pitched as, do you want to get into the big thing?
Yeah, right on.
All right. Tokyo Nexus was part 2 in a 3-part story of how, do I get like one story?
Yeah, well, I mean, I swore before, so I think you're allowed.
It is the story of like how all the shit goes bad and to create this dystopia that, I apologize, I just literally saw kids exactly as I said that. But,
I'm sure they've never heard those words.
but it is basically building up to this grand big story that is going to be the next book coming in.
Yeah.
Of what happens when the other companies that are starting, or other countries are starting to create their own replicants. And when you get somebody like that, you can get, you can create your own assassins. You can create your own military made of these guys. You can make new rules for replicants as to like, it will never disobey me, but it'll go crazy in a new way. But it's stronger than the other guys, so that's why you should buy mine. And then like and next thing you know, that's like putting a nuclear warhead into every country that makes a replicant, and all of them are different. So you also get each of those countries all have their own version of what a Blade Runner is. And you don't know how horrible that is until you get to it, what those relationships are like, and what they do to the world. And so you have our set of replicants and Blade Runners that we're used to in the US, and they're just like, oh, we're now in a Cold War. And so what that series is coming up is each arc is sort of a different genre of what happens in a Cold War. Everything from an underground crime ring that can't be held responsible for what these replicants can do, because replicants don't have rights, but they can't relate to back to the person that told them what to do. While at the same time, it is going to another country and seeing what exactly they're doing with it there, and other replicants where you have no idea what they're capable of or what it is you're in the room with, and the horrible atrocities that come with that. And a last arc that I can't talk about because a million things happen, and it's such a massive cast of characters that we know, young versions of characters that we know. The first time you see characters completely flip and turn into what you'll know them to be within like 2019 and even further than that. And what Nexus is setting up is like, it is someone lighting a nightlight. It's this beautiful love story. It's a platonic love story of 2 characters where they discover that their relationship is a key point as to what is going to cause all of this. And do they care enough about the world to stop it, or do they care more about each other? Is it the elimination of each other? Is it worth saving everyone, or do they run away? And I love where we are with it. Thank you for allowing me to do this.
What do you think, Jeff?
Well, when you hear a good idea, you should let passion go where it should. I think where it is on the timeline, being so early, I think there's a lot of runway there, because we know from 2049 maybe these things didn't work out, or in a way that's off stage or we don't know about. So I think you can really explore those things that you're talking about, the individual versus the group. Do I save everyone? Do we just save ourselves? Where does the responsibility lie? Do you have a responsibility to a synthetic human? These are the questions I think that are great with the franchise. It's not about what makes the cars fly.
I think it's a great privilege in a way to be able to look at the macro universe, the macro timeline of it all that we know about, and to be able to go back in and fill in these blanks of world history within this universe. And for me as a huge fan, it's just great to see it slowly, reveal it, okay, let's go to 2090, let's go to 2090, let's go to, it's such a rewarding process as a reader.
Well, we're never going to have the type of lore that a Star Wars has, or a Star Trek, where there's this, or Halo even, that just has these huge Bibles, all this stuff. It's very liberating, I think, that there's more of a minimalistic type of continuity to it, and that we can sort of maintain a through line, and everything so far has been in canon, so we don't have to at some point say, oh, all these other stories, they're imaginary, or they don't count, or they're legends now. We're not doing that.
And I think that's a really important point. The fact that all of this is canon, that's a beautiful thing. It's often not the way. And again, with having a universe that you can creatively exert, a reasonable amount of control over, it allows it not to go wild. So for you, Mellow, the fact that it's actually part of the universe, that must feel awesome.
It's very intimidating sometimes.
Yeah.
What was it? I will be like, this character does this, and then he'll yell at me about it and say that I broke something in the timeline. And then, but there's also a lot of cool stuff where you get to define a lot of reasons why characters do what they do. You don't change what already happened. You don't change anything in the universe heavily. All you do is define it in really crucial ways. So that way, the next time you watch a movie or you see the anime or anything like that, it hurts a little more.
Yeah.
Or there's a little bit of joy in it. Which is also something I wanted to inject into the series, that like there is, it is, to me, it is the grandfather of cyberpunk.
Yeah. Wow.
And there's so much in it that is about rebellion, but it's rebellion when it starts.
Yeah.
It's that spark that hits you. And that's the punk part. It's the part where you just like, you throw the badge down, you break the shackles off of you. And it's like, when these two characters are on the rooftop in the rain and they're about to beat the hell out of each other, now we're about to have a conversation about who we are. And getting to that point is really, really good. But finding new ways to do it within this world and to define it, so that way when you look at even the original movie again, you're like, I identify with a character I didn't think I did before.
Yeah.
And it's cool.
And those ground zero moments, of course, those moments of inception, if you will, that's when there's real risk attached, real narrative, dramatic risk, but in real life as well. There's real risk attached to those moments because there's not a body of movement and thought. It's the beginning of it, and that's when all the stakes are massively high. Melly, you touched upon something as well, which is Jeff might look like an avuncular and nice Gandalf-esque figure, if you will. But he is super protective and highly intellectually exercised about what we do with Blade Runner as a publisher, what Mellow and the creators do. And I know from personal experience that the last place you want to be is at 2 a.m. in London having a conversation with Jeff Conner where he's unhappy with you. So, I can't think of a better.
My bosses
Yeah.
attack each other on stage. Like, that's my kind of thing.
Creativity is about solving problems. So the more problems I can create for the creators, the better the work will be. I do it for you.
Let's talk about one of your great creations, Ash. We followed Ash across 30 years and 3 epic arcs, 19, 29, 39. For both of you, do you have a favourite Ash moment from within that lifespan that we've seen?
We want to cheat a little bit and advertise a bit. And this is a reveal here. Ash is in the last arc coming up. And it is punk 26-year-old Ash, like we've never seen her before. That it is the wildest character in Blade Runner, and really wildly. And Cal is just like, screw it, let's give her a badge. and becomes this particular character that is like incredibly useful for, if you haven't read Origins, won't spoil it too much, but his secret mission.
Yeah.
And she does a lot of things in there that have never been done in the series. And it's really cool with like how she's like kind of like breaking down characters and discovering how she feels about replicants. And if you know how 2019 starts, it's complex, it's really bad. She's not a good person. She's pretty horrible. And driving that character and giving her a reason to be that way was really, really cool. But of the moments that we know, I think it was like her turning points in 2019 that I love.
From a reading perspective, I completely agree. How about yourself, Jeff?
Well, what Mellow was referencing is how characters from different storylines turn up in other storylines, and I think how we do that is pretty good. And I also like how, I'm a big fan of the Black Lotus anime. I know it's divisive for some of you, but I really like that a lot. And the Blade Runner in Black Lotus, Marlowe, the best Blade Runner, the guy totally badass. And so we put him in the Black Lotus comic. And then also Ash deals with them in her comic. So this cross, bringing the characters around and throughout the canon, I'm a big fan of that. In terms of Ash's, her greatest nemesis, I think the middle arc, where
The accountability arc.
yeah, I like that quite a bit.
Nice one. Our good friends at Comic-Con here have just told me that we've got about 10 minutes left. So does anybody have any questions for these two gentlemen while they're in front of you? And if so, please come to the mic.
Hey, in terms of world building, haven't you thought about the legality differences between the environments like LA versus Tokyo or worldwide? And then are we going to see any like Japan brand inspired tech like for replicants or spinners?
Yes, there's definitely going to be a lot of things involving weather, and Kiana has made a decision to say some stuff about Tokyo from her personal experiences living in Tokyo. Like it has a dome over it, it's very hard to get into, and they control the weather via this dome over your head. And because of that, it is the day that it is always supposed to be, and they remove any chaotic variables because of that. And what it does to you mentally, what it does in terms of like your personality and like how you view the world, how you feel about it, is part of a system that is happening there that it deteriorates part of you as a person without a little bit more chaos happening in your world. And being able to show the technologies that are made to like soothe you, to make you just kind of like enjoy what this world is instead of what it could be. It's interesting to see how that triggers and changes characters so much from what we've seen in Los Angeles.
It's important to have a pacified population. That's why we have cable.
Thank you for bringing this beautiful world into another space.
Thank you.
I have two Blade Runner tattoos, by the way. I'm curious, even though the movies haven't brought the characters into your narrative, did you ever think about them going the other way, to have Ash be on the big screen?
Sure.
That was a really, really complicated answer. Thank you.
I mean, like I always, I love money. I would love for any of these characters.
Hi, when I first saw Blade Runner, I remember just thinking about the social construct between replicants and humans and how that kind of divided everybody. And being young and watching that and thinking, like, will there ever be a world like that? Like, it just seemed so far-fetched at the time. And now that we're kind of living in a world that is, tends to be a little more polarized politically and it's worldwide, I want to ask how much of that was an influence into writing this new series and what it will eventually become.
Everything that's, to kind of ask a question over a question as well, do you mean that also in regards to like AI right now, or just overall, just how?
Just AI and politically, and,
Yeah.
and also kind of thinking also about Isaac Asimov's like 3 rules of robotics, and how the 3rd rule has been broken, and replicants are kind of, bending for, or fighting for their lives, type thing.
We got a little question. How much time we got?
A good couple of minutes.
Yeah. In regards to AI, I myself am a software engineer. I know that AI is kind of like a ripoff, and that it's really a series of workflows that can only repeat things that are already seen, and it doesn't come with new ideas. When we talk about Blade Runner in that regards, what we're talking about are entire beings that do have new ideas. They have concepts, and they can take things that they have, mold it into something new, and build out new characterizations for themselves. And once again, referring to Chris in that regards, and like those replicants that are just like, no, I want to be me. Like I want to do. Sometimes I just want to play basketball. I don't know. And but you can identify with someone that wants something, that needs something, and feels something like that, and then you start having to ask yourself the question of, is that a person or not? Is all that curiosity and creativity the things that also make me me? And so that's more of a question for everyone here. That's more of a question of like, do you think that that is a person then? Like where we are with AI, that's not a person. It's repeating things that statistically you want to hear. But when it starts creating its own thing and it starts having its own opinion about things, independent because of like gaining knowledge you have in different situations, like is that a person at that point? So that's the funnest thing about this series. Discovering that and asking yourself that, or if you're just like, no, it's just pile of junk, please shoot it. So,
Thank you. And we've got time for one more question.
Hi, this is more meta. Hi, Mellow. I want to ask, how intimidating is it for you? Because obviously you come into this series like later than everyone else. There's already these established perimeters. How intimidating is it to write for this series and to feel like you're fitting it in and not interfering with anything? Like, was that experience?
it's really, really intimidating. I've been lucky to work in a lot of different IP. I've worked on IP I can't even talk about yet on Netflix and all kinds of stuff. And it is never easy. It's always something that it takes a lot of work. Convincing this guy to let me write on the book was just like, he's like, give me an outline. But I'm going to pickle you for a bit. He's like, give me an outline, and it better be good, of origins. And so I had to sit down with Kate Perkins, my writing partner at the time, and it was just like, it needs to be the best story that Blade Runner ever had because of how he said it. And it was just this huge 2-page epic that we wrote of that tied up every character within 5 paragraphs and gave them just this big massive arc. And it was every day we just kept going back to each other is it good yet? It's it's not better than Ridley Scott. We gotta be better than Ridley Scott. And so it's just repeatedly doing that and then proving it and earning our way and then handing it over. And he was like, okay, I guess. And so it's incredibly intimidating, but it's also intimidating because I don't want to let go of that.
Yeah.
We're extremely grateful for you all, and we don't want to change the things that you love about the franchise, but we do want to iterate. We do want to build it out more. We do want to actually focus on the stuff where it's Blade Runner is very subtle with with what it's saying, but at the end of the movie, it is Ridley Scott trying to shake the camera, being the Blade Runners are the bad guys, but some people don't get that. And the more you tell the story, it's harder to continue to be that subtle about it, but you just have to find new ways to do it. Unless you come to Comic-Con and you hear the writers say, the Blade Runners are the bad guys. But yeah.
Do you worry about how fans will react, older fans, to your work?
Yeah, but at the same time, it's, I'm at a booth downstairs, they can come to me with targeted harassment at any time, and they're like, oh, that's cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great question. So let me say, just before we wrap up, which we're about to do, that, as you can see right here, the beautiful Christian Ward alternative cover for Tokyo Nexus 1 is available from booth 5537. Not only that, but Mellow will be signing at booth 5537 on Friday at 4 p.m. Something about booth 5537. We are against the wall of the exhibition hall next to door C. Because we're in an against the wall spot, if you go to row 5500, you will not find us there. We're nowhere near that place. So our booth number is 5537. It is actually to the left of door C into the exhibition hall. You can't miss us because we have a big floor-to-ceiling banner. But as you walk through door C, we'll be on the left. We're actually at the end of rows 2300 and 2400. So please, don't join the thousands of people who've gone to the wrong side of the exhibition hall trying to find us.
Can I add something there?
Of course.
Because of working on Blade Runner Tokyo and going there a lot, so that way, like, we could get everything correct and culturally accurate. It made it to a point where I'll be moving there, and that'll be happening soon, like this year.
Amazing.
You should definitely come get an autograph now because I'm going to be very fun. About 20 minutes after this, just be down in the booth right there. It's right by door C or so.
Wow.
And we'll be there for a few hours. And I just want to say thank you to everybody. Despite the fact that
So again, 5537, which is entrance C to the exhibition hall. Before we leave you, can you please give a round of applause to our lovely Comic Con volunteers here? And to our tech guy over there he is. Thank you so much. And one quick extra bit of Mellow Brown goodness. Another project that Mellow has created for us at Titan is his wonderful Jimi Hendrix graphic novel, beautifully illustrated by Tom Mandrake. And it is an absolute head blower of a project. And it's beautiful, it's physically beautiful, it's available.
Are we selling it?
Yeah, we're selling it downstairs. We're selling it downstairs at the booth along with all of Mellow's Blade Runner goodness. You really want to see this Jimi Hendrix graphic novel. It is utterly cosmic and it is fantastic. And I see this as an old school music journalist. It's brilliant stuff. So it's an amazing piece of work, mate. So another big round of applause for Mellow Brown and Jeff Connor. And thank you very much for joining us. Good to see you. If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.